On this week's episode of My Take Radio, we're going to break down Bellator 170, the latest in MMA news, plus my predictions for UFC on Fox 23 going down this Saturday. And on the wrestling side of things, of course, we got Raw, SmackDown, 205 Live, the week's wrestling news, and my Royal Rumble and NXT predictions. My Take Radio's MMA and Wrestling edition starts right now.
This coverage is live and uncensored, so if you have any small children present, you may want to have them leave the room.
What's going on, guys? My Take Radio, episode 390, powered by Rageworks. This is our MMA and Wrestling edition, giving you the latest and greatest on all the happenings in the world of mixed martial arts and professional wrestling. I'm your host, Rich, and if this is the first time you've downloaded an episode of My Take Radio, first off, I want to thank you. Secondly, I want to let you know that My Take Radio is a variety show covering mixed martial arts, professional wrestling, gaming, and entertainment. For the last 300 or so episodes, we've been doing My Take Radio live. Recently, we made the jump back to releasing it in a podcast-only format. For those of you that have had questions about that, feel free to check out our announcement on rageworks.net. But real brief, I will say that the podcast episodes, both for the MMA and Wrestling edition and Gaming and Entertainment editions, will be released similar to the release schedule for our live broadcasts. We're going to be releasing the MMA and Wrestling editions Thursday morning, Eastern Standard Time, and the Gaming and Entertainment editions will be released Friday morning, Eastern Standard Time. As always, you can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, and TuneIn Radio by punching in the Rageworks Network or My Take Radio. All right, so a couple of housekeeping matters to get out of the way. First off, I want to thank everyone who has downloaded the first two podcast-only episodes of My Take Radio from last week and given me some feedback, some critique, some criticisms to help us get our groove going forward with podcasts. You know, you get used to a grind doing live episodes for so long that it becomes a little odd recording a podcast on a regular basis versus just doing a live show and then taking that audio or video, cutting it up, and releasing it to the wild. Now, I know a couple of you guys have asked about video once again for the YouTube channel for the shows. We've been doing it just with a stationary image and the audio with the episodes. I think we're going to continue doing that for the time being, but rest assured, I haven't closed the door completely on live broadcasts, just relegating them to those special instances where we have guests or where we are doing milestone episodes, which in this case, My Take Radio episode 400 is around the corner, and that, ladies and gentlemen, will definitely be a live show with audio, video. Maybe we'll find a way to take some calls. We'll see. I think that with the recent switch to going podcast only, we decided to stop using Blog Talk Radio because it was an expense that we just did not need considering what we have going on. But in any case, the next live episode of My Take Radio will be episode 400. But until then, we'll keep releasing MMA and Wrestling editions and Gaming and Entertainment editions in podcast format. And as always, you guys are welcome to share your thoughts on it. Feel free to email me or hit us up on social media. And we definitely got some cool guests in the works for the next couple of months, which we hope to share once things get confirmed. But until then, we're just going to leave you with that little tease and let us jump into this week's MMA news. Shall we? Let's get right to it. So I want to get the ball rolling with the big story from this past weekend, which was, of course, Bellator's 170 card, which, of course, had Tito Ortiz and Chael Sonnen in the main event. but it also had some very, very solid fights, including a very, very exciting fight that was on the card between Paul Daly and Brennan Ward. All right, so we're going to kick this off with our Bellator 170 recap, and the card itself, I got to say, was incredibly solid. A lot of good fights on that card, but it also had its fair share of, I don't want to say boring fights, but definitely fights that had no business being on the main card. One of those fights is the Halleck Gracie Hisaki Kato fight, which, we're expecting the typical, Gracie fanfare coming into the fight, but the fight itself was just very, very, very uneventful. Hisaki Kato pretty much covered the fight, from bell to bell with a very, very inactive Halleck Gracie. If anything, maybe we started to see a little something in the third round, but at that point, it was too late. Hisaki Kato took the victory via unanimous decision, but it didn't matter. The crowd was dead, and most people that I talked to just felt that the fight was not as good as it was, as it was sold. It was, the build up to the fight. It was like, hey, Halleck Gracie coming in after a long layoff, taking on a dangerous Japanese fighter and Hisaki Kato. The story between the Gracies and Japanese fighters, etc., etc. There was a lot coming into it. Halleck Gracie hadn't fought in 7 years. When the last fight he had was against Sakuraba back in 2010. Kato, on the other hand, came in with, a really dope knockout over Joe Schilling. And, like anything else, fighting a Gracie, getting a feather in your cap if you beat them is always nice. But the fight, like I said, was just incredibly uneventful and was not a good way to showcase Hisaki Kato, and definitely didn't do Halleck Gracie any favors either. But we went from that fight, which some people that I know called a sleeping pill fight, to number one, an exciting, a semi-exciting announcement that King Mo and Rampage Jackson were going to square off. But unfortunately, Bellator botched that by showing the announcement on screen before making the announcement. So as soon as they were like, oh, we got this announcement, they showed it on screen, I was like, well, someone in the production truck is getting fired. In any case, they did announce King Mo and Rampage squaring off. We'll get into that a bit more in the MMA segment. The overall face-off and just the selling of that fight was really bullshit, in my opinion. I got to say, King Mo came off his loss to Crow Cop, coming in, fighting Rampage, who hasn't fought in forever. They're fighting at heavyweight. And, the trash talking is textbook King Mo, Rampage trash talking that they've done before. But it just didn't have any sort of excitement, any sort of real thrill to the announcement. Maybe just because of the way it was done, maybe the botch. But, I mean, I'm a Rampage fan. I always have been. But I just feel that his career as of late has been him just trying to stand and trade with everybody instead of using his wrestling and all the other tools in his toolbox, instead just relying on the stand and bang mentality, which when you're fighting a guy like King Mo, who he actually chastised for wrestling, he's like, oh, you're going to sit here and hump me for 3 hours. It doesn't make any sense because it was Rampage's wrestling pedigree that brought him to the dance. The heavy hands were definitely a factor, but it was the wrestling that made Rampage who he was. And King Mo, we're talking about a guy that competed at the highest level. And even though his career has had some highs and lows, all in all, I felt King Mo was always a guy that was incredibly close to being a top star in any promotion, but different things got in the way. Bellator definitely sees the upside to King Mo, and leveraging his existing quote-unquote issues with Rampage is a nice way to get him back in the spotlight. I think that a loss to Rampage will definitely hurt King Mo a bit, not because Rampage is slow or anything else, but just because we're at a stage where Rampage, he's a good fighter, but a guy who's younger, faster, and has a more well-rounded toolbox can definitely take him apart, which is a damn shame too, because I still feel that Rampage has a couple of good years left in him. But we'll see what happens when the fight comes together. I'll give you more details, like I said, later on in the segment. Now, we went from the Gracie Kato fight to a welterweight tilt between Paul Daly and Brennan Ward. Both guys known for their incredible stopping power. We know Paul Daly, nicknamed Semtex, is capable of ending a fight quickly. Brennan Ward is no slouch either. I mean, both guys, like I said, highlight reel KOs are definitely a very, very big part of their repertoire. And sure enough, this fight did not disappoint. As soon as that bell rang, Paul Daly came out leveraging his 3-inch reach advantage on Brennan Ward. And, there was a nice little exchange. Everything was going back and forth. And, Paul Daly connected at one point and he wobbled Brennan Ward. And, Ward tried to shake it off and continue to move forward. And all of a sudden, they got up against the fence. They separated. Daly connected with a nice spinning elbow on the break. And a beautiful jumping knee just put Brennan Ward out. And it was a beautiful sight. I mean, it definitely got the fans out of their seat. Fuck, it got me out of my seat. I was like, holy shit, just because I know Paul Daly is a knockout artist and he's going to give us highlight reel performances. Same thing with Brennan Ward. Like, both guys are no slouch. And I said to my wife, I'm like, this fight is going to end violently and quickly. And it definitely did. For Paul Daly, it's another great highlight reel knockout. It really puts him right up there in title contention, in my opinion. He kind of called out Rory McDonald next as an opponent since he came over from the UFC, which I think is a good matchup. Paul Daly is he's a guy who's been in the game a long time. It's unfortunate what happened with him in the UFC, as I feel Paul Daly definitely can make a big splash in the UFC welterweight roster, but still, his performance against Brennan Ward was tremendous and sorely needed on a card that was, coasting along, to say the least, but definitely a beautiful finish for Mr. Daly. Now, of course, on the light heavyweight side of things, Tito Ortiz taking on Chael Sonnen. As I watched the build up to the fight, there was a lot of trash talking. Chael just running at the mouth the entire build. Tito Ortiz doing his usual Tito Ortiz. And the thing was that the story going in was the Chael Sonnen defeating Tito Ortiz during a collegiate wrestling match and, leveraging that bit of history to build this fight, which is fine. Tito Ortiz wanted to go out on his shield. This was his last fight. He was going to retire, fighting a guy and avenging a loss that he suffered in his early career is definitely a great story. Chael definitely turned it up another notch, talking about everything and anything possible, from Tito Ortiz's ex-wife to, problems with money and cars getting repossessed. There was a legit amount of trash talking. And the thing was, I think that Chael Sonnen, in the hope of really selling this fight, I honestly feel he lit a fire under Tito Ortiz's ass. I mean, Tito Ortiz came on, in shape, which he's never out of shape. He just looked a lot better than usual. And Chael did not. I mean, the fight was contested at 205. Chael, is a guy that's fought at 170, 185, and he usually comes in really good shape. And when I saw Chael at the weigh-ins, he just looked like a guy that got off his couch and did not genuinely look his best. Now, I don't know if maybe there were other circumstances at play, but Chael did not look like the Chael that we've seen in previous outings. And that right there for me was an indicator that this fight was definitely not going, A, to go to distance, and B, it was going to be something that we would be talking about for the foreseeable future. And sure enough, Tito Ortiz went in and, he went in, he used his wrestling. Everybody thought that he was going to go and try and use the ground and pound, but it was interesting because, Chael actually tried to go in for a couple of different submissions, and, Tito Ortiz ended up securing top position, and from there, it was just a matter of Chael giving up the back and Tito Ortiz locking it in, and that, ladies and gentlemen, was that. Now, the thing is that when you look at the submission, people were questioning whether the fight was fixed or not, only because of the way that Tito Ortiz, his arm placement was on the chin. It wasn't completely under the chin, but it had enough of a squeeze to really put the pressure on Chael. I mean, Chael was turning purple, which, you gotta acknowledge that. The thing also was that Ortiz had a really good body triangle in place, which is definitely going to cut off a large amount of oxygen. And he held on to that submission, like Big John McCarthy had to pull him off. And it was interesting just because we know that there was bad blood going into it. And we know that Tito was trying to make a statement. And, some people are going to look at it and be like, you shouldn't have held on to the submission that long, etc. It is what it is. But Tito Ortiz shut up the critics, including me. And I'll go on the record and say it. I felt that Chael had this in the bag, just because I felt that Chael was just a more capable fighter. But I think that Tito Ortiz really dialed it in, and it showed. I mean, we saw a couple of really nice, just a couple of little things that Tito was showing. Like I said, good movement, really good shoot for the takedown. It was tremendous, and he put Chael on his ass, and that was it. I mean, for Chael, it's interesting because a lot of people felt that this ended up exposing Chael as just being a guy that used his mouth more than anything to get him to the dance. And it's tough to dispute that, but it's also tough to not look at the accolades that Chael had going in. Chael is a guy that went the distance, even with Anderson Silva, whether you love it or hate it, whether the guy turned out to have one testicle or was on TRT or wasn't on TRT, whatever the case may be, he fought, an MMA legend, held his own for 5 rounds, and, he lost. I mean, Chael's weakness has been submissions. We've seen that. Now, the Bellator machine is not going to look at this as, something that devalues Chael. I think Chael brings a lot to the table, whether it's selling the fight verbally, color commentary, announcing, whatever the case may be. They definitely have a commodity in Chael Sonnen, and they should do everything in their power to leverage that for the foreseeable future. Obviously, many fans, including myself, are looking forward to seeing Chael possibly mix it up with Wanderlei Silva in the near future, and I think that's the fight that would really be a great way to showcase Chael. Again, just genuine animosity between him and his opponent is an incredible motivator, whether it's for his opponent or for him. And Chael is one of those guys. He's polarizing. People want to see him either get smashed or smash somebody in the face. That's the way it works. Now, a lot of people were messaging me about the outcome, and they were like, "Damn, yo, fucking Tito proved you wrong." And I'm like, "Hey, he did." I'm not going to make any excuses. I thought that the Tito that was going to show up was the Tito that, hey, I had a broken skull, a broken back, I lost because my ACL was torn, I had a lot of personal drama going into this fight. The usual excuses, but it was what it was. Tito looked good. He came out with his son. It was very emotional, for the fans. And even for me as a fan watching Tito fight one last time, this is one of the guys that made me a fan of The Ultimate Fighter going back to the old days. And yeah, Tito wasn't the best fighter or the greatest, but his contributions to the sport can't be ignored. And yeah, he had his issues, whether it was with Ken Shamrock or Chuck Liddell, Dana White, et cetera. But at the end of the day, there were contributions that Tito brought to the table that really helped in one way or another put MMA on the map, whether it was the showmanship, the brash, cocky attitude, whatever the case was. Tito was definitely a part of that. And it was definitely an emotional thing to see him leave his gloves in the cage, walk out with his son, and bid the sport farewell. But as with anything, I doubt we've seen the last of Tito, whether it's a front office job in an MMA organization or managing or promoting. I can tell you that we definitely have not heard the last of Tito Ortiz. That's for sure. Now, I got to say this, it raises interesting questions going forward, because one thing Bellator has done is that it has and I've said this before, they have a good crop of up and coming fighters, but they really have found a good way to breathe life into veterans and guys that come out of the UFC that many people just aren't really on board with. And I say this in the sense of, I'll give you an example, Matt Mitrione. I like Matt Mitrione. He's a likable guy, a fucking strong motherfucker, a big dude, entertaining, well-spoken, and is fighting Fedor. It's like Matt Mitrione went from, being a fairly successful fighter in the UFC to fighting Fedor. Now, whether it's right or wrong, at the end of the day, Matt Mitrione has a chance to be listed amongst the greats that defeated one of the greatest mixed martial artists on the planet. And people are always going to say what they want about Fedor, whether, his record had his fair share of cans, etc. But at the end of the day, when Fedor was fighting, and I say this all the time, Fedor was fighting when MMA had some of the most dangerous human beings walking the planet. And I'm talking about Wanderlei in his prime, Rampage in his prime, Mirko Krokop in his prime, the late Kevin Randleman, Don Fry, the list goes on. Sakuraba, healthy Sakuraba, et cetera, et cetera. It's at Alistair Overeem at his best. You can't. Yes, there definitely were some questionable fights in there, as there would be with most of your favorite fighters. But Fedor's road wasn't easy. He fought some of the best of the best of the best. I mean, yes, fighting Matt Mitrione, am I excited to see it? Sure, because I'm just a fan of Fedor the fighter. Now, I got to say this. Bellator would be wise to definitely leverage Fedor for some really big marquee matches. I mean, this is an instance where if Fedor could cut down to 205, maybe a Fedor Chael Sonnen match wouldn't be bad. Maybe a Fedor Vanderlei Silva fight wouldn't be bad at 205. Who knows? Maybe Fedor may even make a run at the title. But the problem is that, the crop of fighters and the flexibility with Fedor is there, but fans just want to see Fedor in the UFC. And I have a feeling that before, 2017 comes to a close, 2018 may be the year that we finally see the last emperor in the octagon. And as a fan, I really would love that to be the case, but we'll see what happens. I know that Fedor is not going to hang it up without fighting in the UFC at least once or twice. There's way too many great fights to ignore in the UFC for Fedor. But again, we shall see what happens. Now, switching gears and jumping into the news of the week, there are definitely some noteworthy items. One that comes to mind rather quickly is fighters and boxing. The thing is that the big story has been, as of late, the Conor McGregor Floyd Mayweather possibility, and it's been there. Another thing that surfaced lately in an interview with Fox Sports was that Manny Pacquiao went on record to say that if Floyd Mayweather doesn't come out of retirement to fight Conor McGregor, that he'll step in to do it. It's interesting just because Pacquiao, his next fight is going to be against Jeff Horn, and he went on record also saying that he would like a match with Mayweather. It's interesting because everybody all of a sudden wants to fight Conor McGregor in some sort of a boxing match. Would we love to see it? Absolutely. And I said this last week. Is it something that's on the tongue of every mixed martial art MMA fan or boxing fan? I mean, maybe. Like I said, I don't know where I stand with this. I'm intrigued. I would see it, but like I said last week, to not beat a dead horse, it definitely has the potential to damage the legacy of Conor McGregor or Floyd Mayweather or Manny Pacquiao. Now, McGregor does not seem to be the only fighter that has been bitten by the boxing bug. ESPN is reporting that Nate Diaz is applying for a professional boxing license in Nevada. The Nevada State Athletic Commission did confirm the news, stating that it has been in contact with Diaz's team for several weeks and that Diaz is in the middle of filing the paperwork needed to obtain a license. Diaz also paid the $50,000 fine the NSAC gave him for his little altercation with Conor McGregor during the UFC 202 press conference. That's definitely interesting. I mean, Bob Bennett, the NSAC director, said that Nate paid his fine and he had requested a boxing license, which he submitted the licensing information. And the end game is that the license will be approved, and Nate, and it looks like even Nick, are able to fight in Las Vegas, whether it's with the UFC or a boxing promoter. It's definitely a very, very interesting piece of news. Like I said, Diaz now joins McGregor in MMA fighters receiving boxing licenses. McGregor, of course, received his license to fight in the state of California back in November. Very, 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 very interesting. Of course, Nate Diaz is still under contract with the UFC, and he's pretty much said that he doesn't want another fight in the UFC if it's not a rubber match with Conor McGregor. I don't know if, as a fan, I even give a shit about seeing those two guys square off one more time, but it might happen because, cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching for the UFC. But again, we will see what happens. In some other news, Daniel Cormier and Anthony Rumble Johnson are scheduled to square off finally at UFC 210, which is going down April 8th in Buffalo. Of course, this is the rebooking of a fight that was supposed to have happened at UFC 206. Unfortunately, Cormier suffered an injury and had to be pulled from the card. So we're finally going to get that match. As an Anthony Rumble Johnson fan, I really hope this is the one. No disrespect to DC, I like him, but he's just, not that he's been coasting, but just like I said, he took that weird fight with Anderson Silva, which was complete fucking horseshit. And then he gets injured, and then we thought we were going to get the fight with Jones, and now we're getting the fight with Rumble Johnson. Again, I don't have any dislike towards Daniel Cormier. I just feel that his run as light heavyweight champion, for the most part, has been forgettable. He's a great ambassador for the sport. He's a great personality for the sport. But I just feel that as a guy, as a fighter, he hasn't been tested. Maybe that's a good way to look at it. I kind of just feel that he kind of just fell into having the title. That doesn't mean that he doesn't deserve it. I just feel that, I don't know, man. I think DC is a guy that if he cut a little weight, he could make a good run at 185. He could probably do real damage at 185, much like Rashad Evans, who came into the sport at light heavyweight at one point and then dropped down. I mean, I think if I'm correct, I think Rashad came in during the Ultimate Fighter as a heavyweight and then came down to light heavy, et cetera, to where he is now. I like Rashad Evans. He was one of those guys. What I expected out of DC is more or less what Rashad Evans brought to the table, which was a great combination of striking and a really, really solid wrestling base. DC just he's just there. And it's unfortunate. I know some people are probably going to give me shit for saying that, but I don't know, man. I just feel Daniel Cormier's light heavyweight title run has been fucking forgettable. I genuinely forgot that he was champion because that's how little the UFC does to even acknowledge his existence, which is a damn shame. Anyway, last bit of MMA things to tie it up, to wrap things up for this week is the UFC on Fox 23 fight card. The main card is going to be on Fox at 8 p.m. Eastern time, 5 p.m. Pacific. The prelims will be on Fox Sports 1, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific. And then, of course, you got the early prelims on the Fight Pass. I wanted to go through the fights for the prelims and the main card. I think that the main event for the prelims, Nate Marquardt, Sam Alvey, definitely a fight to keep an eye on. Also, Rafael Assunção and Aljamain Sterling is another good card, another good fight on that card. Bobby Nash, Li Jingliang, also solid. And, a couple of predictions. I think for the most part, I want to give predictions on those three fights because the Marcos Rogerio de Lima and Jeremy Kimball, the Eric Spicely, Alessio Di Chicarico fight, and the Luis Enrique de Silva and Jordan Johnson fights, while they are openers on the prelims, I unfortunately have not seen enough of the fighters to give you guys educated fight picks. But I will give you guys picks for the Bobby Nash, Li Jingliang fight, and Sterling Assunção and Marquardt and Sam Alvey, and then we'll jump into the main card. So Bobby Nash, Li Jingliang, solid fight. Li Jingliang, of course, picking up steam after, being a contestant on The Ultimate Fighter, which that alone, it raises some interesting things. And, the thing that with this recent crop of guys that have come out of The Ultimate Fighter, for me personally, is that, when you've done these other fights, I understand what the UFC is trying to do. They're really trying to create a personality for various parts of the world as they move into other areas. Li Jingliang is a guy that, a Chinese fighter. MMA is starting to really pick up in China. And, the thing is, it's, I think they've really done a good job in promoting him, but I feel that they're trying a little bit too much. That's my opinion. Also, to correct myself, Li Jingliang was not on The Ultimate Fighter. I fucked up there. I confused him with another fighter that came out of The Ultimate Fighter, and I believe he was the one that was suspended for possibly having performance enhancing drugs in his system, which turned out to be a mistake. So actually, yeah, I believe that fighter was the one that ate the tainted meat which his name escapes me at the moment. If I remember it, I'll mention it during next week's episode. In any case, Li Jingliang was, he came into the UFC, I believe it was 173, and he's been fighting actively ever since. He faced Nordine Taleb, and that was back in 2014. Then he, went through a couple of different fights, and the last one that he fought was at the Ultimate Fighter 23 finale. That was in July, and then he was going to fight Chad Laprise. I remember that. They pulled him from that card when Laprise withdrew, and what ended up happening was he was, I believe, scheduled to fight Yancy Medeiros. Medeiros was pulled from that card, and then now he's facing Bobby Nash, who is a newcomer to the UFC, who I'm not familiar with. Now, I'm gonna go out on a toss up here, and I'm gonna try and give a prediction based on just Li Jingliang being a veteran in the UFC. Bobby Nash comes in with an 8-1 record, so definitely no slouch. I want to say that Li Jingliang has this fight, but it can go either way, and I'm gonna kind of go coin flip here and go with Bobby Nash on this one. We'll see what happens. Meanwhile, Rafael Assunção coming in against Aljamain Sterling, who's definitely slowly picking up steam in the organization out of Ray Longo's camp here in New York. I like Aljamain Sterling. I like the way he presents himself. I like the community work that he does. If you follow him on social media, you know what I'm talking about. And, I got to show love to the hometown guy, even though, Rafael Assunção is a dangerous, dangerous man. So I'm going to go with Aljamain Sterling for this, showing a little love to New York on this one. But, Rafael Assunção can definitely play the upset role for sure on that fight. Nate Marquardt, Sam Alvey. I like both dudes. Both dudes go in there. When they're dialed in, they are definitely guys that can't be taken lightly. But I got a soft spot for Nate the Great. He's been in the sport a long time, and sometimes when you think you've written him off, he fucking surprises the shit out of you. And I think this is going to be one of those instances where he goes in there and does just that. So I'm going to go with Nate Marquardt on that one. Switching gears to the main card, we were supposed to originally get Hector Lombard, Brad Tavares, but that fight got pulled. The opener for that is going to be Bruce Leroy, Alex Caceres taking on Jason Knight. I was originally going to go with Jason Knight, but Alex Caceres definitely is just a really fun fighter to watch. I like the fact that, he calls himself Bruce Leroy. It's, one of those endearing things that, makes him a likable character when he was, first on the scene. So that, and the fact that, just like I said, I like Caceres. I'm gonna give him the benefit of the doubt, and I'm gonna go with him as my pick for the opening fight on the main card. Andrei Arlovsky is on that card, taking on Francis Ngannou. Arlovsky is always a guy that's been on the verge of title contention. I think that if he has a really good showing, he may get back in the title hunt. Francis Ngannou is no slouch. Dude comes in with a 9-1 record, fighting the veteran Andrei Arlovsky, 25-13 coming in. It's easy to want to give it to Arlovsky because Arlovsky definitely has been stepping it up as of late. Ngannou is a bit of he's a mixed bag. It's like he's kind of a guy that is dangerous, but much like Arlovsky, it's really all about which version shows up. I got, again, much like with Alex Caceres, I got a soft spot for Andrei Arlovsky. So I'm gonna go with Andrei Arlovsky on this one, which is the guy's another dude. He's exciting to watch. I mean, like I said, Ngannou, he's gone in there and he's done some really great finishes. I think when he first debuted, he took a knockout in the second round. Then he faced a new guy, I believe, back in during a fight night event. He won that one via TKO. Then he won another fight via TKO afterwards. Then he took on Anthony Hamilton, and he won that fight via submission. And he took a fight of the night bonus. So, like I said, a guy that definitely has the potential to put you to sleep or choke you out. But I think Arlovsky's not gonna roll over and die that easily. I feel that his career has gotten a breath of fresh air as of late. I think that was poor wording. I think Andrei Arlovsky's career has got a jolt. Let's go with that. it definitely has got a jolt as of late, and I think that he might go in there and give us another spectacular performance. But Francis Ngannou definitely has the tools to end that fight in a very, very quick and violent fashion. Now, one of my favorite fighters, Donald Cerrone, taking on another favorite of mine, Jorge Masvidal. These guys are masters of coming out, standing and trading. Really, really great stand-up game from both fighters. Donald Cerrone, another guy that's, he's pretty much a hair away from a title shot. Jorge Masvidal is a guy that when he comes in there and he's dialed in, he is a fucking problem. So I have a feeling that we have ourselves a guaranteed fight of the night, ladies and gentlemen. So definitely watch that one because that one's going to have fireworks. As for my pick, I like Jorge Masvidal. I don't want to pick against him, but Donald Cerrone, man, has been on a tear lately. And like I said, title opportunity is right around the corner. Our main event, Valentina Shevchenko taking on Juliana Pena. Juliana Pena is really trying hard to make a statement and become the next face of the UFC, which is obviously an honor that currently rests on the shoulders of Amanda Nunes and formerly on Ronda Rousey's shoulders. And I think Juliana Pena is coming in trying to make a statement. Valentina Shevchenko is no pushover and no slouch by any stretch. I think this is one of the reasons why this fight is your main event of the evening. Juliana Pena, like I said, marketable, trash talking, definitely capable of getting it done in the cage. And I really would like to pick her for this fight, but Shevchenko is so well-rounded. And Juliana Pena, since coming back, we've seen, we really have seen a little bit of her resurgence, but I just feel, at least for me, that she is, she needs one or two more fights under her belt before people start talking about her challenging for a belt anytime soon. It's unfortunate because, the injury that she suffered was horrific, tearing ACL, MCL, damaging her LCL and meniscus. It was insane. And, she was seriously shelved for all of 2014. And then when she came back in 2015, she did well, she did well taking on Jessica Ai. She looked good taking on Kat Zingano, during the summer. And, taking on Valentina Shevchenko is good. I think that that's a fight that, like I said, has the makings of possibly getting her dialed in for a title opportunity. But like, as much as I want to say that Pena has this in the bag, Shevchenko is no joke. I mean, Pena, since coming back, has, she won the return fight via TKO, but her last two fights have gone the distance. And again, that's not because she's any less of a fighter than she was before she got injured. She actually fought two dangerous opponents in Jessica Ai and former title challenger Kat Zingano. But Shevchenko, like I said, is she's definitely no joke. On the contrary, she she has very, very aggressive kickboxing, coupled with the fact that she knows how to utilize it very, very well. I mean, her second fight in the UFC, she fought Amanda Nunes, and she really had a good performance in that fight. Even though Nunes won that fight, Shevchenko definitely did not look bad, that's for sure. And, she also defeated Holly Holm. So think about it. She fought our current women's champion, women's bantamweight champion, Amanda Nunes, and she held her own and then defeated a former champion in Holly Holm. So there's definitely some serious ability there. Not to mention, she's got boxing under her belt. She's got kickboxing under her belt. So definitely be aware of her striking game because it is definitely serious. That's for sure. I'm excited. I'm excited for the fight. I'm glad to see the ladies take center stage, and Juliana Pena definitely has the tools. I feel that, her ground game definitely is solid, but on the stand-up, Shevchenko is definitely the better fighter in my opinion. And because of that, I'm gonna give it to Valentina Shevchenko for the win at the UFC on Fox 23 card. We shall see what happens. So with that bit of predictions out of the way, I think that's a good way to wrap up this week's MMA segment. Again, UFC on Fox 23 goes down this Saturday. We will break it down next week. All right, let us switch gears and jump into the wrestling for this week because we got the Rumble, we got Raw, we got SmackDown, we got 205 Live and the news of the week as well. So let's not waste any more time and get right to it.
Yes, sir, we promised you a great main event here tonight. Look at that here. Andre, the giant WrestleMania. Everyone has a price. My God, what a ride. It's the It's not over. Watch it.
Man, does that intro give me chills. Let's get this party started with this past Monday's Raw, which of course was the last Raw before this Sunday's Royal Rumble. Raw was hit or miss. I mean, again, you got your go-home show to get everybody hyped for the Rumble. There were some good moments. There were some moments where you're just like, ugh, why is this happening? And then you had some really good wrestling. I mean, the Gallows and Cesaro thing, we get it. You're trying to do a couple of matches to build up the title opportunity, for Gallows and Anderson at the pay-per-view. It was all right. I mean, I'm not a fan of Luke Gallows in singles competition. I think that there are guys in this business that are lifetime tag team wrestlers, and Luke Gallows is definitely one of them. Not so much Carl Anderson. I think Carl Anderson has the tools to be a breakout star on his own, but Luke Gallows definitely thrives in a tag team environment. Also, interesting thing went down with Sami Zayn taking on Seth Rollins with Rollins' Rumble spot on the line. A really good match between two, obviously, A-plus competitors. Triple H's music hit, which distracted Rollins and allowed Zayn to capture the victory, which of course now leads to Sami Zayn being in the Rumble and Seth Rollins not. Now, as interesting as this is, I have a feeling that when it's all said and done, Seth Rollins will find a way to get into the Rumble on Sunday. Can't have a Rumble without the Architect in there. It would just be weird, especially because, Dean Ambrose is in there. Roman is challenging for the Universal title. You can't not have Rollins in there. So I'm sure something will happen at some point Sunday, and Rollins will be in the match. We also had some cruiserweight action with TJ Perkins, Mustafa Ali, and Jack Gallagher. Three guys that are definitely the more over faces in the division, taking on the three established heels in Drew Gulak, Tony Nese, and Ariya Daivari. It was a pretty solid match, paint by numbers to some people. But again, we're going back into the old, let's throw the six cruiserweights out there and hope for the best. I get it. I get that you want to get them showcased, and I know you're trying to find a good place for them, but you shouldn't just relegate these guys to cruiserweight opportunities. Why don't you start creating narratives where these guys, maybe they want to challenge for, the IC title or something like that. Maybe we can create opportunities for these guys just beyond the confines of 205 Live. I get it. The end game and the top prize should be, without a doubt, the WWE Cruiserweight Championship, but it almost feels like you're regurgitating the same matches and not really doing much except establishing a handful of guys. I mean, Mustafa Ali, of course, you want to showcase him. He has an amazing finisher, and the crowd is definitely digging it. Jack Gallagher is a talent all his own, and TJ Perkins is over, even though the dab is just tiresome, but that's besides the point. And on the heel side, Gulak is a great competitor in 205 Live, but definitely has the tools to go in there and mix it up with some of the other guys on the mid card. And I think that even though he is an asset to 205 Live, I think you could do more with Drew Gulak, considering the really great grinding style that he brings. Tony Nese, same thing. When I look at Tony Nese, I see the same versatility that we saw in a guy like Neville. The only problem with Tony Nese is that for Tony Nese to shine, you got to change his look a bit, because right now it's almost like looking at Neville. Obviously, Neville just looks like a shrunken, Wade Barrett, but still, I mean, that's the problem. The similarities, even the commentary team has talked about that, how similar they are physically, and that, that's definitely going to raise a couple of red flags. Of course, Ariya Daivari has, he came in, the guy definitely has the tools. He's there, but I just feel that tying him up with Jack Gallagher and not allowing him to really go out there and showcase his abilities has hurt him a bit. But again, that's my take on it. Now, we got a nice little segment to set up a match with Rusev, Titus O'Neil, Jinder Mahal, Braun Strowman, The New Day, Enzo, and Kaz. And there were some funny moments in there. Overall, the match was just a way to showcase Braun Strowman, which we're not shocked. I mean, he went in there and he pretty much eviscerated everyone, which is to be expected, and of course led to the Big Show making an appearance, which we all know is leading to the Big Show's competing in the Royal Rumble. And the thing with the Big Show is, his physique has come a long way. If you've been following him on social media, you see that the Big Show's got in incredible shape. The guy has fucking abs. This is all obviously leading towards his match with Shaq. But again, one of those things that my geeky young wrestling fan mind appreciates is stuff like that. The face off with him and Braun Strowman, you're like, all right, when these guys finally fight, it's going to be kind of cool, but it's only going to be cool in a Royal Rumble environment. Just please don't put that on my TV every week. But in the Rumble, shit like that, visuals like that are pretty badass. So it was cool, and show got a good reaction. And you can't dispute the fact that the guy is probably in the best shape I've ever seen him. We had a U.S. title rematch with Roman Reigns and Chris Jericho, which was set up at the beginning of the evening. Of course, the big thing here was somebody was going in the shark cage, and sure enough, it was Kevin Owens. The match itself was decent. We knew it was going to end with shenanigans because obviously it's just the way it works. And it wasn't a bad match. It was just something we've seen a bunch of times. We had a Nia Jax squash match, which of course led to Sasha Banks showing up and beating the holy hell out of her with a crutch, which builds towards the match that they will be having at the Rumble Sunday. It's interesting that they worked so hard in keeping Nia Jax out of the title picture, because I think that when the time comes, they want to make it that this chick is going to win because she looks the part. Putting her in a feud with Sasha Banks is okay. I feel that Sasha Banks being out of the title picture, while it is good, I feel that she's being, I don't want to say she's being wasted on Raw, but I just feel that with Bayley tied up with Charlotte, we're only seeing Nia Jax, and that's it. I think that Raw definitely a division. I think Dana Brooke, I want to say she's getting ready for the Arnold, or maybe she might be injured, not 100% confirmed, but I feel that there's definitely not enough talent now on the Raw side of things. It feels like SmackDown definitely is stepping it up with their competitors, and the recent addition of Mickie James is proof of that. I kind of feel Raw is kind of treading right now. We had a non-title match with Rich Swann and Noam Dar, which, again, we knew how it was going to end. I definitely think that Rich Swann's kick that finishes matches should be called the Swan Song. I definitely feel that would be a great name for it. If it ends up being called that, ladies and gentlemen, I want my royalty check, Vince. Make it out to Rageworks. I would really appreciate it. We got another vignette for Emelina. No one cares at this point. It's essentially fast forward for me. And of course we close out with Goldberg. Goldberg comes out, headbutts the door, ends up fucking bleeding. He flubbed a bunch of lines, a bunch of shit. It was funny because I believe Goldberg said that, I think it's the end of him headbutting the door because he quote unquote knocked himself loopy. I knew that we were going to get something big. I thought it was just going to be Goldberg and maybe everybody just fighting in the usual everybody fights before the Rumble, the ending we've come to expect with Goldberg standing tall at the end. But it was cool because, Heyman came out and I'm like, shit, is Brock here? And sure enough, Brock was here. Lesnar comes in on, all of a sudden everybody's like, oh shit, here it goes. And then, unexpected as it was, the Undertaker's little gong hit and the lights go out. And then when the lights go on, we're all staring at each other. It was, what it reminded me of? Rocket in Guardians. He's like, look at us. We're all standing here. Just a bunch of fucking idiots standing. I get it. I know you want to tease who's going to win, blah, blah, blah. But maybe a little bit more. Maybe, like I said, I think this was one of those instances where I wouldn't mind everybody just coming in and start scrapping, and then the lights go out, Taker shows up, he starts whooping everybody's ass, and then when all the bodies are piled out outside of the ring, it's just left with Lesnar, Goldberg, and The Undertaker to close us out. I just feel that would have been the right way to go. I actually thought Strowman was going to show up, and him, Goldberg, and then Lesnar would have came out, and then Taker, just because those are the guys that you're looking at. And those are the quote unquote the big dudes that everybody's eyes are on going into the Rumble. I just feel that this was one of those times where, like I said, the big everybody beating the holy hell out of each other would have just been better than just the two quote unquote big guys. The three big guys that are in the Rumble just standing there like fucking three jackasses. That's just me. Overall, for a Raw that was supposed to get people invested in the Rumble, it did a passable job at best. On the SmackDown side of things, we had, again, better stuff. We had, Randy Orton and Luke Harper's thing was good. We know where it's going. It was interesting that, Bray Wyatt hit him with Sister Abigail to close things out. It opens up a possibility. Is it tough love? Is Luke Harper booted from the Wyatt family? And what does this mean heading into the Rumble? So it definitely raises a lot of questions. It also makes you wonder if Randy Orton has orchestrated this shit from the jump, which is also a possibility. I'm giving Randy Orton a lot of credit, but still, the match itself was good. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Luke Harper, definitely one of the best big guys they got on the roster to date, and a guy that you definitely should be looking at for your mid-card. The only problem is, with Baron Corbin also on SmackDown, people tend to forget about Big Luke. We also had a battle royal for a spot in the Rumble, and as soon as I saw the competitors that were involved, I'm like, fuck, Mojo's going to win, and I just essentially stopped giving a shit. Dolph Ziggler killed Kalisto dead because we're still obviously pushing the whole Dolph Ziggler heel thing. He mixed it up with Apollo Crews, so that's definitely a feud that's going to continue to pick up heading into Mania. We had an IC title lumberjack match, which was all right. Again, we knew that was going to end with a big Donnybrook with everybody beating the holy hell out of each other, and it definitely did. That's for damn sure. We had a couple of interviews and segments which were okay, like Mickie James coming out and talking, cutting her promo, talking about the motivations to come back and why she attacked Becky Lynch, etc., etc. I thought that it was a good way to establish that Mickie James is a force even now, and that it was also a great nod towards the history that Mickie James has had in the women's division, because think about it. Yes, I got to agree with what she expressed in the promo. We talk about Charlotte, Becky Lynch, and the current crop of women in WWE killing it in the ring. But we still had some of that stuff back in the day between Mickie James, Trish Stratus, Lita, Beth Phoenix, who may or may not be going into the Hall of Fame. We'll see what happens. We definitely had plenty of opportunity to see some amazing talent, and we did to a large degree. I mean, don't get me wrong. The women's revolution currently going on in WWE has led to the women being respected more, but that doesn't take away from the fact that Mickie James, Trish, Lita, Beth Phoenix, even Melina were in hell. Even Michelle McCool and Layla, who ended up improving later on, were assets to the women's division back then. I think it was good. I think that the relationship between Mickie James and Alexa Bliss is going to be interesting, given that Mickie James is kind of crazy, and I like that she was still kind of crazy during the promo, which was good. It was great. It was really well done. The whole Carmella James Ellsworth thing is I mean, it was funny seeing James Ellsworth out in public wearing like ring gear and shit, but it was ridiculous outside of that. The whole Nikki Bella, Natalia thing, it's all right, but hopefully it's going to be something that puts them at odds in a bigger stage. This whole, I hate you because you and John Cena are taking over the company. We got it. We definitely got it. I liked the AJ Styles John Cena promo that went down. I thought it was really good. AJ Styles definitely dialed in on all cylinders, and Cena coming in, just dropping some really good heat. Lot of intensity going in. I think that AJ Styles is coming to his own. A lot of people used to complain about AJ's Southern drawl. I like the usage of the, John Cena showing up on Good Morning America. Was it Good Morning America? One of those morning shows, the one with Al Roker, and AJ Styles being called some guy from Atlanta. I like that. I gotta say, as a fan, I liked it because I thought that they did a good job, but I also felt that it kind of, in a backhanded way, devalued AJ Styles. I mean, the guy's the fucking champion of your second broadcast television program. The guy has a fucking name. It was something I wasn't a fan of. It wasn't Good Morning America. That was the one with Katie Couric. It was the Today Show. It took me a minute to get that, but Yeah, I kind of felt that it kind of devalued in a backhanded way AJ Styles, but I liked using that real world atmosphere to add to their rivalry. They did a good job with that. It was weird. It was weird seeing Cena like acknowledge the indies and shit like that. I mean, it was a good way to get some verbal jabs in, but you could just feel that there was a little bit of that, yeah, take that, indie guy. And it was funny. I think that some people felt that there was a heelish atmosphere and a heelish energy in Cena's promo, and I kind of felt that way too, man. I kind of felt that we were seeing the resurgence of hip hop Cena, which was interesting. We'd love to all see John Cena turn heel going into Mania, but I just don't see it. But I definitely saw some little sparkles of it in his promo work with AJ, and I thought that the promo was stellar. They didn't have to beat the fuck out of each other to sell me on the match. I really want to see it. I think Cena has really stepped it up as of late, and it was good, man. It was really, really good, and probably one of the matches to keep an eye on for the Rumble. Like I said, the Lumberjack match was about as academic as you would expect. Everybody jumps in at one point and starts scrapping and blah, blah, blah. Ambrose defeated Miz in a good match. It was just enough to get us excited going into the Rumble, but not too much to derail any momentum that they may have leading to WrestleMania. If you had to put the shows on a scale, I would say that Raw definitely was not the better show this week, and SmackDown was a bit more cohesive, had a lot more solid wrestling, and some really, really good mic work from a lot of the individuals involved. But again, we'll see what happens this Sunday when the Rumble goes down. Now, on the 205 Live side, it was really good stuff. TJ Perkins, Tony Nese, I feel we've seen that one time too many. Brian Kendrick took on Trip Bradshaw, which I'll get into in a moment. And the main event, Neville taking on Cedric Alexander, which I was excited about. First off, the Perkins Nese match was solid, really good. I feel the guys are shackled. Considering the stuff that we've seen from both of these guys during the Cruiserweight Classic, this match just felt very, very clean, very concise, very cohesive, but nothing super crazy. It was like, all right, kind of cool, but meh. It was all right. I mean, I liked the little post-match attack from Nese because obviously that's going to build towards a little feud between them, which is fine. I think TJ Perkins and Tony Nese is a solid feud to watch over the next couple of weeks. We got a promo for Tozawa. Really excited. He debuts next week. Ready to see people getting German suplexed on their fucking dome. It was good, man. It was really, really good. The Trip Bradshaw and Brian Kendrick's match was essentially just, a way to showcase Kendrick and also to buy everyone time because, of course, they had established that Kendrick was going to feud with Tajiri after taking that miss to the face, but Tajiri getting injured derailed that. So you got to keep Kendrick out there somehow, and just running through random guy A is a good way to fill up some TV time. Now, the main event I was really excited about with Neville and Cedric Alexander. Cedric Alexander, I've said it, is one of those guys that you can definitely not only build your division around, but has the potential to be a big star in the company as a whole. The match was really, really good. I was thoroughly impressed. It was Noam Dar, of course, got involved. The submission that Neville is using was good. I think that it's a good way to, reinforce his more aggressive edge. Obviously, we'd all love to see his aerial finisher because it's the fucking truth. It was great, man. I just felt that you should have just let the match run its course. The whole Noam Dar thing, it's good if you want to add some filler, but it took away from what was, in essence, a truly, truly classic match. And the best part of it was that for all the times that I complain about the crowd just killing the vibe, the crowd, again, and that's because Cedric Alexander has connected with the fans. Same thing with Neville. Neville's always had that connection. I mean, they're doing a good job establishing that he didn't have it, but fuck, were they there, man? They were really, really, really there. A lot of great energy. like I said, just hurt, man. I just really was hurt by the whole Noam Dar. It's like, why would you take away from that match? I get it, I really do get it. I like that Neville just lost his mind and started beating the shit out of Noam Dar and Cedric. Of course, him and, that led to Swan coming out. Him and Swan had themselves a really nice brawl, got everybody hyped for Sunday. In all honesty, and some people are going to give me some shit, 205 Live was better in 1 hour than Raw was in 3, and would probably be comparable to how good SmackDown was, if not, like I said, for them ruining what was a stellar match between Neville and Cedric Alexander. I would have rathered Neville get the victory. Noam Dar comes out for the post-match beatdown. Neville lets him get his shots in. They beat up Cedric, and then he beats up Noam Dar. There was no need to hurt that classic fucking match by sending Noam Dar out there, which is a damn shame, too, because like I said, the match was fucking fantastic. Anyway, let's jump into some of the wrestling news for the week. Want to give you guys my predictions, and we will wrap things up. So, the Wrestling Observer newsletter and a couple of other outlets have been sharing what is, according to a few sources, the complete 2017 WWE Hall of Fame class. Of course, we all know Kurt Angle is official, and we've heard rumors, like I've said, about Diamond Dallas Page, Rick Rude, Beth Phoenix, which are also on that list, but there was also mention of Christian, William Regal, Mike Rotunda, Earthquake John Tenta, and Fred Ottman, who of course was the Shockmaster, and also Typhoon. Now again, this list is not confirmed, and it's been shared on a couple of different outlets, and I wanted to mention it just because I wanted to talk about the people that were there. Rick Rude definitely deserves to be in there. Beth Phoenix had a great run, in the WWE, definitely well-deserved. Christian, Christian's awesome. I was bummed that his career was cut so short. I love Christian. His singles run in TNA when he was Christian Cage in the beginning was really good. And then when he came back to WWE, he had good moments, man. But when he was in TNA, I think he was at the apex. But again, Christian definitely is a guy that, while he definitely could be in the Hall of Fame, I don't think he should be right away. William Regal, definitely. I mean, when you go back to WCW and all the great stuff with William Regal, and when he was when it was him and Dave Taylor, Regal definitely has been involved in some really, really good stuff. I loved all the stuff with Tajiri, and again, just classically trained and a big force behind the scenes now in the WWE. Regal, I wouldn't have a problem with Regal in there. Earthquake and Typhoon, I mean, you're talking about two guys that were mainstays if you were watching wrestling in the 80s. Typhoon originally was Tugboat, friend of Hulk Hogan, partnered with Earthquake, and then they became the Natural Disasters. Again, two guys that definitely, they deserve the opportunity. I mean, with all the health issues that Fred Ottman is going through, I think it would be cool to put him in there. God forbid if the guy passes away. It would be good, and I think, allowing them to participate and get those Legends deals would definitely help those guys out. We'll see. I mean, like I said, this list has been floating around for the last week or two, and it could change. It was a while back. They were talking about JBL going in there. Don't know how I feel about that. But again, we'll see what happens. Obviously, keep it locked to MTR and Rageworks for announcements regarding the 2017 WWE Hall of Fame class. Interesting piece of news made its way through various websites, and it's that AJ Styles was robbed during a SmackDown live event in Jonesboro, Arkansas. The police report that they stole about $1,000 in cash, $7,000 in Japanese yen, which comes out to about $60, $61, his iPhone, some Beats headphones, a TV, an Xbox 360, and 6 Xbox 360 games. Just really, really unfortunate, man, that you're going out there, you're entertaining the crowd, and somebody just decides to go back there and steal your shit. As somebody who's gone to Madison Square Garden on more than one occasion, Nassau Coliseum at one point, it's weird because, the backstage areas are really locked down pretty tight, especially here in New York when it comes to Madison Square Garden. You got people breathing down your neck in every corridor, unless it's the bathroom or concessions. You can't just wander around freely. Now, when I was listening to the story and reading the story also, it made me wonder if it was possibly just an inside job, not another wrestler, but maybe just security or staff. I mean, maybe he left it out in such a way that they were able to make off with the stuff. It's just unfortunate, man, that you go as a performer, you go out there to entertain the crowd, and somebody decides to go into business for themselves and take your money. It's really fucked up, in my opinion. That's for damn sure. Hopefully, it's not like AJ Styles won't bounce back, but you're stealing the guy's cell phone. You're stealing his TV and his Xbox. I mean, this is the stuff that the guy's taking on the road with him, helping him survive while he's on the road to entertain you, the fans, and to just have your shit stolen sucks. That's all I got to say. It looks like Hideo Itami may be on his way back. A couple of different news outlets have been reporting that Hideo Itami has been cleared to wrestle. If you remember, he suffered a neck injury a few months back during an NXT live event where he was dropped on his neck after taking a really, really botched power slam from Riddick Moss. If you look for the video, it's debatable if you want to blame Itami or Moss, but in any case, Itami looks to be, Itami appears to be on his way back. I feel that the Hideo Itami experiment, while it's been good for NXT in the early going, now with Shinsuke Nakamura, it's going to be tough for Hideo Itami to kind of find his way. But I wouldn't mind seeing an Itami Nakamura match. That's for damn sure. And I kind of feel that Hideo Itami would work well in the cruiserweight brand, whether it's 205 Live or just being an active cruiserweight. I think Itami would definitely be a good fit there. We'll see what happens when he comes back from the injury. We were getting close to a program between him and Austin Aries. We'll see if that is going to still be the case. But I wouldn't mind seeing Itami go to the cruiserweight division and still feud with Austin Aries, who many people are saying is heading to the cruiserweight division as well. We'll see what happens. And of course, we will keep you guys posted. Well, it looks like Matt Hardy continuing to call out the bucks of youth on TNA Impact has finally paid off, as Ring of Honor announced that the Broken Hardys, or the Hardy Boys, or whatever you want to call them, will be facing the Young Bucks at Ring of Honor's Supercard of Honor going down in Lakeland, Florida on April 1st. Also on that card, the Ring of Honor World title will be on the line as Adam Cole defends against Dalton Castle. But we're finally going to get it, folks. The Hardy Boys, the Hardys, the Broken Hardys will finally face the Young Bucks in Ring of Honor. So if you're going to be in Lakeland, Florida, definitely check that out, because I have a feeling that match is going to be fucking awesome. Now, the next piece I want to talk about is something that happened on Twitter recently, and it circulated, a lot of the usual outlets. And it was interesting because a fan tagged Batista on Twitter and said that Batista's 2014 run was a complete waste. Batista obviously didn't take too kindly to that, and he said, "Complete waste. I put your hero Daniel Bryan over at Mania and fought to keep Evolution together to put over the Shield. You're welcome." Here's the thing. Batista has, he was always a great asset to the WWE. He had a great look. He was a good big man. He was even a solid main eventer during his time. The problem is that so many people couldn't look past the fact that they were putting Batista over Daniel Bryan, that it kind of damaged Batista. We had Blue Tista. We had all this shit going on. And it was interesting, and it definitely didn't do Batista any favors during that run. But I did feel it was a bit unfair to call the run a complete waste, because he added something to his tenure, and working with Daniel Bryan and doing the stuff with Evolution and the Shield were all solid things. I mean, seeing the Shield and Evolution square off was fun. It was a good match. And again, that was a big part of it, because, you had those three pieces together. Now, do I feel Batista deserves another run in the WWE? Absolutely. I think he definitely has the potential to mix it up. I would probably put him on SmackDown, because I think that SmackDown needs to have a couple of more guys. I think Raw is a little too talent heavy with main eventers at this point. Plus, you got guys that are on the verge of breaking through, versus SmackDown, where you could kind of bring in some established veterans to breathe some life into the brand and the feuds in general. And again, it's one of those things where I don't feel it was a waste. And it's one of those things that hurts sometimes with social media, that people think that just because you can reach out to your favorite performer, whether it's wrestler, athlete, whatever the case may be, that you could just be all sorts of reckless. I mean, these are the same people that if they met Batista at an autograph signing or whatever, they'd probably be chomping at the bit for an autograph or whatever the case may be. And it's unfortunate, man. Was I a fan of the Batista run in 2014? No. Would I call it a complete waste? No. I would just say that it was poorly orchestrated by creative and it could have been handled better. That simple. But I wanted to share my thoughts on that because that was something that not only I didn't only see it on Twitter, but I saw it shared across various outlets too, and I wanted to share my thoughts on it. Now, this next bit of news involves a guy who I'm a big fan of, and that is Pentagon Jr., who many of you know from obviously the photos I've put up from previous Lucha events, and who was an active performer in AAA and wrestles on Lucha Underground, first as Pentagon Jr., now as Pentagon Dark. Well, interestingly enough, it seems that Pentagon Jr. has left AAA and is now a free agent. He's been wrestling as Penta Cero M, or Penta Cero Miedo, if you wanted to call it that, but he is not using Pentagon Jr. as that was the name that was used by in AAA, and it looks like that is going to be his name going forward. Of course, this also happened with his real-life brother, Phoenix, who has now been wrestling on the independents as Ray Phoenix, and they, the brothers, both Pentagon Jr. and Phoenix, will now be wrestling as the Lucha Brothers on the independents. It's interesting just because things aren't hunky-dory in AAA. I mean, a lot of those guys have been having issues with AAA, and even though they've left AAA and continue to work with Lucha Underground, a lot of the guys have left the promotion and just haven't been happy. It's interesting too because obviously AAA has a stake in Lucha Underground, and Lucha Underground has now wrapped up their season, which a lot of people were bummed out about, especially a lot of the wrestlers, because there won't be any additional tapings until later in the year, and because of that, obviously it's hurting these individuals' wallets, and it's crazy that Pentagon, a guy who's made his name as Pentagon Jr., now has to go and wrestle as Penta Cero Miedo or Penta Zero M. I mean, we know what it is, and people are probably just are still going to call him Pentagon Jr., but that's how he's going to wrestle on the independents going forward. I think this is going to be an interesting story, not so much because of Pentagon Jr. leaving AAA, but because he is, quote unquote, now a free agent. Now, I'm curious if WWE has been scouting or has even given any thought to a performer like Pentagon Jr., because I think he's over. He's super over. The crowd digs the character, and he's just an intense dude. I also feel that as much as I'd like to see him mix it up with some of the performers in WWE, I also feel that WWE just doesn't have the creative capabilities to utilize him effectively. But we'll see what happens. We'll be monitoring this story extra close. Pentagon's actually scheduled to wrestle for Lucha Libre Promotions in February, and as much as I'd love to cover that event, we are slated to be at Toy Fair, but in the event that something changes, we will definitely keep you guys up to date with regards to that. Anyway, Lucha Underground will be returning later on this year, and they will wrap up their season, and maybe we'll see if the rumors of them going to Netflix are true. John Cena's continued mainstream ascension gets another accolade under its belt, as John Cena has been tasked with hosting the Nickelodeon Kids' Choice Awards for 2017, which go down March 11th. Cena, of course, had recently hosted the ESPYs as well as the Teen Choice Awards last year. Obviously, this isn't a super big deal versus, all of the stuff that The Rock has done, but it's still noteworthy because Cena continues to slowly become the mainstream go-to performer that WWE has been trying to groom him to be for the last few years. And we're definitely starting to see it. I wouldn't be shocked if we start seeing Cena in more mainstream films, et cetera, and if he starts winding down his full-time career into more of a part-time role, even though he swears he's not a part-timer yet. John Cena is not the only guy that's mainstreaming very well. Another wrestler that is definitely on his way up is a good friend of ours, past guest on MTR, and that is our very own Xavier Woods, who many of you know wrestled as Consequences Creed in TNA, has been on My Take Radio, at least 3 times. WWE announced that Xavier Woods is going to be co-hosting the South by Southwest Gaming Awards March 18th alongside Sonia Reed, aka OMG, it's Firefox. Definitely, again, a great thing for Xavier Woods, who, when it comes to mixing pro wrestling and gaming, he does a tremendous job. His channel, Up, Up, Down, Down, is a treasure trove of awesomeness, whether it's trips down memory lane with old school games or just seeing some of your favorite superstars. Really excited for video games like the rest of us. I think, Xavier Woods has been killing it, and I'm super, super happy for him. All right, to wrap things up, let's get into some predictions. On the NXT side, of course, we got NXT TakeOver. Some really good matches on deck. Roderick Strong taking on Andrade Cien Almas. I think Roddy is going to go over in this match. I think they're going to start grooming Roderick Strong as the next guy to probably challenge Shinsuke Nakamura sooner rather than later, or Bobby Roode, depending on the outcome. But I feel that Andrade Cien Almas is definitely going to push Roderick Strong, and he's going to do a good job in getting Roddy over. Now, Eric Young and Ty Dillinger, as much as I like Ty Dillinger, I know that they're really going hard with Sanity and Eric Young at this point. I would love to see Ty Dillinger win. I would also love to see Ty Dillinger show up in the Royal Rumble as number 10, but that's just me. In any case, like I said, even though my heart wants Ty Dillinger to go over, Sanity is really starting to pick up in NXT, so I definitely see Eric Young walking away the victor in this match. The NXT Women's Championship will be defended in a fatal four-way with Peyton Royce, Nikki Cross, Billie Kay, and Asuka. I think this is going to be a match that has all the capabilities of stealing the show. I like what they're doing with all four of these ladies, and even though Asuka has every opportunity to lose the belt, I don't see her doing so just yet. I feel that the match itself is going to be very good, and I think that even though I'm not a big fan of Peyton Royce or Billie Kay, I think the ladies will step it up for this match, and we are definitely in line for something special. The NXT tag team titles are up for grabs with the Authors of Pain taking on DIY, Johnny Gargano, Tommaso Ciampa, and again, it's easy to think that the Authors of Pain are going to go over in this match, and I can't disagree. As much as I want DIY to remain champions, I also feel that DIY are guys that you can use on the main roster or on 205 Live, which was something that's been rumored for quite some time. The Authors of Pain, they're okay. I'm not a big fan of the gimmick personally, but they're all right. If you want to create this big monster tag team to fill the void left from when the Ascension got called up, then sure. But honestly, even though I'm saying that the Authors of Pain are going to go over, I would not be mad if DIY retained, but I just don't see it happening. The NXT Championship match has Bobby Roode taking on the one and only Shinsuke Nakamura in a match that has all the makings of an instant classic. I think this is going to be a breakout opportunity for Bobby Roode, and even though I'm excited to see Roode in the main event, and he's probably going to have a dope entrance as usual, as is Nakamura, I think Nakamura will retain the championship for now. If anybody sees Nakamura losing the title at any time, it's probably going to be during the NXT TakeOver event before WrestleMania. If anything, that's when I see Nakamura dropping the title, and I see him debuting on Raw or SmackDown right after Mania. I think that's usually the way it goes, and I feel that that's something that's almost a certainty at this point. All right, let's talk Royal Rumble. We got two matches on the kickoff show, Sasha Banks and Nia Jax, which, as much as I like Sasha, and I know that Sasha's super over, I think we're really starting to see Nia Jax come into her own and get groomed for a title opportunity. So I definitely feel that Nia Jax is going to go over in this match. As much as I dislike it, I think that is what we are going to see. The tag team title match between Gallows and Anderson and Cesaro and Sheamus. I know people want to see Gallows and Anderson capture those titles, but I don't see Cesaro and Sheamus losing them till at least WrestleMania. If not after. I think that they've done so much to get these guys over, and they're having fun with it. To have them drop it now may be a mistake. Our Cruiserweight title match with Neville and Rich Swann. I love Swann. I think he's awesome. Fun guy, incredibly talented, but I think that this is going to be Neville's opportunity, and I see Neville walking away as your new Cruiserweight Championship. Cruiserweight champion. Sorry. On the women's side, Bayley, Charlotte Flair. I think Charlotte's going to keep her pay-per-view streak alive now, and I think that we're going to build towards either a triple threat or fatal four-way at WrestleMania, with Bayley possibly getting her, big WrestleMania moment at that time. Until then, I think that Charlotte's just going to hold on to the title for the time being. The WWE Universal Championship up for grabs, no DQ match. Roman Reigns, Kevin Owens, Chris Jericho suspended above the ring. It being a no DQ match is definitely of concern. I feel that it being a no DQ match will allow Kevin Owens to retain. Maybe someone new will join the fray and cost Roman Reigns the match. Perhaps Braun Strowman, which is what I've been hearing. But we shall see what happens. I think that if there's no real outside involvement, I see Roman Reigns capturing the Universal Championship and leaving the Rumble and heading with the belt to WrestleMania. As for the WWE Championship match between Cena and AJ Styles, I love the story going in. I love AJ as champion, but Cena is knocking on the door of history, tying Ric Flair's record. I wouldn't be shocked if Cena goes over to main event WrestleMania as champ. We'll see what happens. That's a match that could go either way, but I think that's the pick that I'm going with for now. I see John Cena going over. Now, your Royal Rumble match itself, a lot of possibilities, a lot of different scenarios that could play out. It could be Goldberg, it could be Lesnar, it could be Taker. I honestly feel that it's probably going to be The Undertaker. I hate to say it, but I just feel that they're probably going to not surprise us, but definitely give us something with The Undertaker. I feel that Lesnar and Goldberg are going to fight it out, probably either eliminate each other or something's going to happen. And then, of course, we'll get the big match at Mania, and that'll be it. But I feel that The Undertaker is going to win the Rumble this year. It's terrible to say. It's not what I'd like to see, but I feel that that's what we are going to see. It's going to be The Undertaker winning this year's Royal Rumble match. Again, we'll see what happens. It's around the corner. Sunday night, Saturday for NXT, Sunday for the Rumble, and of course, we will recap all of those events next on our next episode of MTR. All right, I think with those predictions out of the way, that is a good way to wrap up the wrestling segment for this week. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I've given you guys my take on MMA and wrestling this week. As always, I would love to hear yours. Feel free to reach out via social media, whether it's on Facebook, Twitter, on @RageWorks, Rage_Works, or @MyTakeRadio. And of course, any of the other social media accounts that we utilize. Of course, you can find links to all of those in the show notes. But as always, make sure to get your fill of everything My Take Radio and RageWorks related by heading over to RageWorks.net. All right, guys. Thank you guys for checking out this week's MMA and wrestling edition of My Take Radio. And I will be back next week to talk Royal Rumble Aftermath, Raw, SmackDown, NXT, 205 Live, the week's wrestling news. Plus, we'll talk about UFC Fight Night and the MMA news for next week as well. Thank you guys for listening, and we will see you guys next week. Peace. My Take Radio is part of the RageWorks podcast network, bringing you the best rants about gaming, entertainment, and the works. To find out more, head over to RageWorks.net.